Hey guys, I'm gonna give you a final to take home over the break, and you can work on it at your leisure at home. And what we're gonna be doing is building a scene. We're gonna take the trees that we made using shapes, and we're gonna combine them together into a scene um, to make all these things come together to make an image. You can see in the background I've got a gradient sky. I've got a moon with radiating light. I've got my trees that I built in the last project. We're going to be making some shadows for them as well. Notice that they change scale as they move further away, just like we know how to do. Each of these is its own individual object. We can have different groups of different objects, and we can move them around in different places as we see fit. Some can be big, some can be small if you want them to be, depending on depending on what you want to do. You can see we've also got these gradients in the mountains here. I'll show you how to make all this stuff. We have the light color going to the dark color, and then again light to dark in the back here as well. This is what's called a radial gradient. And let's go ahead and just get started on this. I'm going to get you started for today, and then I'll do a part 2 of adding the trees. We'll just do the sky and the mountains and the moon and stars, and then we'll bring in our trees for the next part. Okay, so we're going to start out just by, you can even just work from this same project. If you go to the pages tab right here, you can open your trees project and go to the pages and just say add a page. It's fine at the default of 640 by 640. It'll give you a blank canvas. We're going to select the rectangle tool and draw a rectangle in here. Now, if this seems like it's going too fast for you, just slow down the video or stop and rewind, okay? You can work at your own pace. So we're going to click on the color here. We want to fill it with a linear gradient. Linear meaning line. And the linear gradient has 2 parts to it. It has the starting point and the end point here. And we need to change those values. So we're going to change the white one on the top to be something more of a blue. We create a sky. Now, if you think about it, you might want you may want a daytime scene or you may want a nighttime scene. And so depending on that, we're not going to be using black. Even for a nighttime scene, we're not going to be using black. We're going to be using light colors, okay? So if we were going to do a nighttime scene, we would use a color like this, and then our darker color at the top might be something, in this range, but it's not going to be black. This is kind of like just a middle blue-violet color right here. Notice how my picker is right in the middle here. We're not going for black. A lot of people gravitate to black as like the first choice. Night is black, right? But we're trying to see the details in our project. So if we do that, it's not going to work out. So we're going to imagine that even if you're doing a night scene, it's going to be like a full moon night when the sky is actually kind of bright and you can see lots of things in the landscape around here. So none of this, no blacks, just dark colors, okay? And that's going to be our starting point. I'm going to switch back to my layers tab right here so you can see what I'm doing. That's the rectangular path that I just drew in the background here. Let's name it sky. And I'm going to lock it. And then we're going to add some mountains in. So mountains, we know there's a couple different techniques that we can use. We can use the pen tool to click in some shapes. Maybe that will be further in the background, far away from us. We did this before. I'll go around the outside like this and back to the beginning. And then in vector, when you use the pen tool, it makes a border. We want to have a color fill in there and no border. So make sure you're hitting that. And then we'll do another gradient here for the fill. This one will be a linear gradient as well. And we'll click in here to modify it. And I'm going to use, remember it's going to go light to dark. So the bottom color is going to be lighter than the top color. And I'm going to keep them in these like deep blues. So lighter color on the bottom, darker color on the top. And when I say darker color, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a very dark color. It's just going to be darker than the color that's below. Okay, so maybe we got something like this. Next, we're going to make some hills up in the front here. And so we're going to grab our circle tool and we're going to zoom out. So holding the command key or using this little button right down here, you can zoom in and out. Also, if you hold the command key down and just scroll your finger over your wheel on your mouse, it will make some shapes. Now the mountains are going to be like this. We're just using a bit of a curve from an ellipse. All right, so we can see we've got something along these lines here. And then when we get into this, we're going to change the blending mode here. So let's make it darker up in the front here, so it's a little bit darker so we can see it better. And then we're going to duplicate that. Command D or Control D. And we're going to put this one behind. It's going to be a little bit lighter because we know as things get further away from us, they get lighter. And then also we need to change the let's change the names of these really quickly. This is mountain in the back. This is this one right here is going to be the right hill, and this one here will be the left hill. And what we want is the right one's going to be behind the left one, like this. So we can just get this overlapping space, and then when we zoom in like this, this is what we're creating right here. We get our sky, we've got our mountain here, we've got a hill, and then a hill in the mid-ground. And you can move these around to kind of find like how much of the hill do you want to show. You know, maybe it drops off dramatically in the front. I don't know, whatever you want to come up with this. But some curving hills, and then going back into the background here. And you see it creates this zigzagging line kind of going back through space here. So pulls our eye through this. Let's go ahead and lock these down so they don't accidentally move. And then I'm just going to turn the visibility off for a minute here. And we're going to work on the next part, which is the moon. And the moon's really easy. We're just going to create a circle. Create a big circle. This could be the sun as well. It could be the moon. If you're doing sunny, we're going to use different colors. So if you're going to use a sun, I'd probably say more in the yellows and oranges, but really pale. Not like this. Not like kindergarten yellow sun. Dial it back a little bit. So it's somewhere more in this range here. Because if you look at the sun, really, it's just this like blinding ball of light. Unless it's down really low at the horizon, in which case you can get into these like really rich oranges if you're doing like a sunset or something. But when it's up high in the sky, it's going to be light like this. So the next thing we want to do is lower the opacity to it so it looks like it's transparent. And it is going to be a little bit transparent here. Now I'm doing a nighttime scene, so I'm going to go more in the blues. And you won't really notice much of a change here. Because it's so transparent. I'm at 7% right here. You could even go lower if you wanted to. And you can make it as big as you want to. You can make as many of these as you want to. The next step is we're going to duplicate that. Command D. And you'll notice where the two overlap, it's darker. And that's because the two are combining together. So if it's at 5% and I have two 5%s together, now it's at 10%. But I'm going to take the middle one and pull it in. Like this. I'm going to hold the shift key while I do it, change the size, and then I'm going to overlap it. I'm going to move it around. You see there's that little dot in the middle. That line is showing me the closer the line gets to disappearing, that's the center right there. But we're going to use another technique to really make sure it's the center. We're going to take this one and we're going to duplicate it again. So Command D or Control D. I'm going to hold the shift key again, make it smaller. Try and be, try and match the distances here. This isn't the best tool for doing that, but it's fine. We can eyeball it. But just make sure you're making circles and using the shift key while you're changing the size. So holding the shift key, clicking and dragging from the corner to make the shape. And there we go. So the inside one, this last one, we're going to turn up the opacity because that's the one that's making the light and we want to see it nice and bright. Okay. I'm going to select everything here, all of these circles, by clicking and dragging from the outside, making this box around the whole thing with nothing else turned on. Everything else is locked, the whole background, everything, except for the circles. Then we're going to right click, we're going to go to Align, and we're going to say Align Center, and then we're going to do the same thing again and Align Middle. And that's it right there. Right click and group. And you'll see you have a group up here. Let's go ahead and name that either moon or sun, whichever you have. And then we'll turn our other hills back on. And the last thing we want to do is move the sun or moon behind the mountain, like this. So it's coming up from behind. You can reposition it however you want to. You can change the size of it if you'd like to. You can make it bigger, smaller. Just make sure that you are holding the shift key while you do those things. Like here it is, maybe coming up over the mountains. I have definitely seen this before in the desert, something that looks like this. I kind of like it off center as well, instead of like, you know, smack dab in the middle. Putting it off to the side can make some interesting things happen. It's really important to consider, like, where are things going in this project? Okay, that's our starting point. And I think that will give you plenty to work on today. I'm going to lock this down also. And this will get you started in the... Oh, there's one more thing I want to do here, which is add gradients to these. Actually, you know what? I'm not even going to include that in this one. We'll come back and do that next time. Okay, so that's it for now. That's creating the landscape. Choose your colors. Consider what colors you're using. Purples, reds, blues, whatever colors that you want to work with. Could be green mountains. There's lots of different ways to consider that. And then in the next video, we'll learn to add our trees, and we'll also add in some stars. You could add in, if you wanted to, you could just add in a couple of stars for now. Remember, this is one thing to consider. Like, the sky is not full of these big stars like this. It's full of very small stars like this. And you can copy these. If you click on them and press Command D, you can copy it. Now, if you deselect it, you can move it around. And one thing to remember is that in the night sky, when it's really bright out, if the moon is out, you don't see a sky filled with stars. You see lots of stars kind of strategically in the sky, and they're not strategic at all. They are what they are, but less is more in this particular case. So using fewer stars might be better in this case. I'm going to zoom in here really closely. I'm going to make this one even smaller, like this. So now I have a couple different sizes of stars. And I'm just going to move them around in different places. Now, if you deselect them and then go to grab them, it's much easier to work with. If you're really good at this stuff, you may even be able to look at some constellations and try and build some constellations in the sky, which would be cool. Now we want to just kind of distribute them in a way that's not clumping them together, but getting them distributed. I think I'm going to put one way off to the side like this. There we go. And then see all of these over here? I can select them all. I click on the top one, and then I hold the shift key and I click on the bottom one to select them all, and then just Command G to group, and then we can name them stars. You can also right click on the group once it's selected and name it stars. And then you can take that whole group and reduce the opacity of the group so that they don't show up quite as much. if you want to double click on any one particular one, you can isolate. Actually, I guess I'm having a hard time doing that. Oh, it did. No, wait. Let's ungroup the whole thing. Here's another thing you can do is you can change the brightness of some of them so that some of them are brighter and some of them are darker. Like anyone that's showing up through the light of the moon would probably be a brighter star. So we're going to do some stuff like that. And now we've got some variety and variation in the night sky. Okay, I'm going to select them all, group them together, label the group again, stars, and well, probably not W stars, but just stars would be fine. And that's it for now. All right, this will keep you busy through class.